Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and this is PRT. And for those of you on Spotify, here you go. All right, here you go, crybabies. You've been just...
Here's your bone.
God,
have fun with it,
dude. Why are you not on Spotify? I can't watch YouTube. I don't understand that. It makes me confused and angry. I'm kidding. We're kidding, folks.
Man.
We're doing noises. Are we doing noises for Halloween? There you go. Look, all right, we got it out. We had to razz you. No, we understand if you're on Spotify and you have not been getting your PRT fix. It's like there is the methadone clinic called Paranormal Roundtable right there.
Mm-hmm. Right?
It's the equivalent of PRT addiction. You can go and get your fix. It's called YouTube. I mean, you don't, it's, what are you doing? You're just like, I'm blind. I don't know. I can't look.
And it's been scientifically proven to have a 100% success rate.
Yeah, to cure you of your, so this is what's happening. So this is Halloween time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we got a few days until Halloween. So we're dropping a show every day this week until Halloween. And then we're even going to do a bonus and drop one on Friday. So here you go. No more crying. No llores. All right, so here's what we got. We're not going to take a long time to do an intro. Join the Patreon, please. It helps the show. Or don't join the Patreon. Become a member, and if you're on YouTube, you can join the membership and get entered into the drawing. We are going to be doing another live this week. We don't know if it's going to be Tuesday or Wednesday, and whatever day we don't do the live, we're going to do it. We're going to drop a recorded episode. So it's a win-win for everybody. Unless you're one of those people that just refuses to watch YouTube. And the last several shows, we're just getting right to business. There's no, we got to get people to chat fill up. Once it gets to 300, we start cracking it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So join the Patreon. It helps out. Send your stories to Josh Turner at the prtpodcast.com. What else we got? The merch giveaway for the memberships.
Mm-hmm.
Go join the member on YouTube. What else?
We got the Patreon at patreon.com/PRT podcast. You can go on there, support the show if you really like what we're doing. We also have we
give you a swag bag, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 tiers.
Mm-hmm. And if you just want to make a straight up donation, you can do that through PayPal, which the link to that is always in the description box of every upload that we do. It's going to say donate, and then right next to donate, it's going to have a little link. You just click on that, take you to PayPal.
Anything to add, Tony? You got anything to add?
I'm the one that's usually doing the giveaway, so if you have a mistake, make sure to send all your complaints to me so I can ignore them.
Yeah, that's real good. Now let them know that there'll probably be one.
But these guys will definitely make sure to let me know that I messed up somewhere. So, but yeah, I think that should be about it, guys. I think they've been...
Hold it. Stop the presses.
They've been waiting long enough.
It's a werewolf.
2 years since we did a last show on Spotify.
Oh, it hasn't. We're missing a Morocco. He doesn't have one.
Oh, he has one right here.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, I don't know what happened, how it ended up.
And see that? Only people who watch the YouTube would know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's going to remain a mystery to y'all because you refuse to get with the program and watch the show. And the world will end.
You're missing out on the Morocco werewolf.
2033, the world will end. And it is because of you. Just want you to know.
You have no idea what we're doing in Morocco.
It's a lot. We were shown by an old gypsy witch, Romanian, Hungarian, Bosnian, Chinese, vampiric, elven, werewolf, ghost.
Dragon
with one leg, and she's in a wheelchair.
And she told us.
And she has one eye.
She said, the world shall end 2033. YouTube not on watching Paranormal of the
World
Table.
shall end in 2033 unless ye answer me these questions 3.
Yes, and then the questions were very simple and basic, and nobody got it right. She's like, who's the current president? Nobody knew. She asked who was on the dollar bill. Nobody knew. She asked who was, what was your favorite color of Slurpee? Nobody knew. And then that was it. Now she's like, you're doomed. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. All you had to do was watch YouTube Paranormal Roundtable. You would have learned. Instead, you want to watch these 1 hour junk food episodes that just talk about people's encounters and they don't teach you anything. But that's fine. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Let's go. Let's get nuts. Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it.
She sounded like that dude on Altered Beast.
Welcome to your doom.
Welcome to your dome. He looked like a one of those Anunnaki. You know, they look like on Prometheus.
Yeah,
Like
one of those engineers.
So speaking of which, if you didn't see the show on Sunday, if you didn't watch YouTube, talk about a weird story, man. I mean, that dude's story was wild, dude. I'm still taken aback by a guy's name was Wayne, and we're gonna get his neighbor's story too. They saw something that looked like xenomorphs. Now, before you go, oh, that's weird. It is weird. We know that's what this show's about. But, dude, this is not the first time we've heard of stuff like this. And we've talked about the Geiger, H.R. Geiger, drawing the stuff because what it was based in his dreams, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's really bizarre, man. So anyway, yeah, I've had this weird conversation with Garitano about this, how everything is soft disclosure. We've talked about it on the show. So anyways, that's not what this is about. We're switching up gears here. We're going to go to Puerto Rico. We're going to Puerto Rico, San Juan, and then the Yunque National Forest in particular. But there, I wonder, because this may be connected to Fort Buchanan. And there could be something to this because I got a story, and Anthony, you know about this. And Tony, of course, just threw it into the junk pile, which is what Tony does, because Tony's going to do what Tony do. Right, Tony?
I don't know. Something about junk.
Oh, my God. Yes, exactly.
Tony B, how Tony B.
Tony B, how Tony B. He'd be like, oh, what is this email? Let's put it in the junk pile. Slam dunk, my man.
Confucius say, when junk not there, throw in there anyway.
He doesn't care. So then it's mine and Anthony's and sometimes Nellie's and whoever else's responsibility to fish it out. And then Tony says, look, man, I had no idea what was going on that day. I was on Ambien. You know how that makes you it makes you not function. And then he goes to sleep. And then we have to go and fish it out. So no, what's weird though, I looked into this file. It just said oddball, oddity. It was, and I'll be honest, I made that file and it was back when Armando was a co-host. So we know what the heck we were doing. We didn't know how to make sound. We were just like, what is it? It's in the computer. That's pretty much what me and Armando were doing. So he made a file or I made a file and it was like oddball, oddity, whatever. And it was from Fort Hood. And then I went in and I looked and there was some half report, not even, whatever. And then I was like, well, we don't use this file. And then another one showed up. So it must have been something that he had fielded, but I reached out to this guy and I actually got that report. So if we have time, we'll go over that one just to compare notes maybe. But I don't know if we're going to have time. If not, we'll do it on the live. See, folks, you're missing out because the live is where it's at. That's where it's at, man. So we'll have to figure it out. But here's what happened. So we had a guy who reached out to us. His name was Manuel. And he said, look, I'm from Puerto Rico. He's like, and my dad was stationed in the military base, Fort Buchanan. He met a woman who worked on the military base. She was a nurse and turned out to be his mother. They had got together and lo and behold, Manuel was born. He is 4 years younger than me. So he was born in the 70s, at the end of the 70s. But the story that he told is not so far-fetched that we haven't heard of this before. Like I said, there was something similar near Fort just said it a minute ago. Fort Hood. I don't know what it's called now. I think they changed the name of it to some other.
Yeah, there's something else. I don't remember.
Some other stuff. But anyway, Fort Hood was where this one was at. And I've gone over some of these weird reports too with Abe Seas, who, of course, Spiritual Encrypted Encounters with Abe Seas, and he was stationed there for years and years. And so I don't know what to make of this one, but so it starts off near the military base, San Juan, the capital of Puerto Rico. And he said, when my dad was stationed there, he said he received reports, and his dad was pretty high up. I'm not going to give away his name, whatever, but he was higher up in the Army. And he said that there were reports coming in that were coming off of one of the main roads going toward the base, just out on the edge of town, where they had an installation that was, how do you say it's not like a secret, but it is a secret, but it's like a known secret. Like, how does that work? Like
we can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, it's unofficial, but everybody knows it's there. Like if you go to any person at a bodega, they're like, "Oh yeah, the base right there." They just
Yeah.
It's like an open
you mean that
secret.
base of the secret base right there?
Yeah.
Everybody can see. Yeah, no, it's secret. Nobody can see it, but we can see it.
The secret base that's definitely not right over there.
And they're like, you want to go to the super top secret base? You go out of the city, take a left, take another left, then you take a right. It's right there. And so pretty much everybody and their dog knows where it's at. You could get lost buying Pampers and, well, there you go. You're going to the restaurant. Oh, look, a secret base, honey. Let's go check it out.
Which is kind of scary if you think about it. You just end up there.
You end up and they're like, what are you doing? And they're pointing M16s at you while you're not supposed to be there. You're like, look, I just came into town for some cigarettes and now I got guns pointed at me.
Can you get that laser sight off of my kid, please?
It's like, so what ends up happening, there was this story that was being circulated of a man wolf. Yes, you've heard that correctly, man wolf. Now, for those that are initiated, you're going to be like, okay, big deal. It's a dog man. Oh, well, not so much. This creature in particular was odd in the way that and there's reports that go, several of them. Now, if you're not from Puerto Rico or part of the military, you might not have heard these encounters, but you might have. I don't know. I heard there's other people talking about it on YouTube, but I cannot confirm or deny that. And I'm not going to send you to those lunatics because who knows what they might try to do to you, brainwash you. No, I'm joking. But anyway, what this first encounter happened in 1971 was the first appearance of what these people were calling like the Puerto Rican lobo, the Puerto Rican wolf. And then it became Puerto Rican, wolfman, hombre lobo, whatever. And so they were saying that this thing was approximately 6 foot tall. Some reports reported him as 6.5 foot tall and very unique because he had the legs and body of a wolf, but the head was different. The head was really different. The first encounter in 1971 was August of 1971. I don't know the date, but it was one of the officers that was coming back from the base, that base is kind of on the outside of town, which was an installation where some people claim that they were working on experiments and the Chupacabra was an actual creature that was found in the cave systems. And I'm not even going to get into it right now because that's not what the show is about, but they took them and tried to weaponize them and turn them into something really sinister. Well, they eventually, supposedly the story goes, and this is urban fiction, legend, whatever, but they say that they overran the facility and eventually they closed it down and a bunch of GIs died. Puerto Rican personnel were killed. And then the secret installation was shut down. Now it's still there, but it's now defunct. But they claim that it's a couple miles south and that it's now underground. And the only thing sticking up at the top is a 3,000 square foot, two-level building where they have security. But that's just a small little outpost. So what would it be? What would it be doing? There never more than 1 or 2 military vehicles there, and that it's actually down below the ground. And even the Army, the regular military personnel, which I think they have anywhere from 12 to 15,000 people there. You know what I mean? They don't even go there, and it's run by a private security firm. But there are military contractors that come and go, and of course there are people who work for the military, but they're not in the military, private contractors. And they claim that the installation, like I said, is actually really below the earth. And supposedly the experimenting is continuing. Now, this is speculation from a lot of people who claim that this is happening. We don't know. I don't know. But this guy, Manuel, who told me this story, he says, look, he's like, you may not want to believe me. He's like, but my dad, who's now retired, he was deep into this and he knew about this, but he was not stationed at that particular facility. He was at the main base and he worked there for years, leaving, I believe he said in 1996. And the base is still there. He said that he's gone by there multiple times. You can see it kind of from the road, and it's right on the edge of the Yunque National Forest. Now, the reports that have come out of the Yunque National Forest, there was somebody that was hiking through there. This creature, whatever it was, attacked him, tore out one of his eyes, literally. This was a Puerto Rican man who escaped with bite marks and was clawed. His back was ripped open, and he ended up losing an eye. He managed to escape, and two of his friends were waiting for him. He got into the vehicle. They got out of there. They made it to the hospital. He nearly bled to death. His description matches the first description, the second and third description of what we can only describe as a man-wolf. The reason that they were calling it this, and not just straight up werewolf or, wolf man, was because the head was like that of a man's. Now, the body was furry. The upper body was like a man's, but it had hairy arms, long protruding claws. The mouth wasn't particularly large, but it was full of like jaggedy teeth. And then the eyes were sort of elongated sideways, and that they were yellow, self-illuminating eyes. But that it was a bald-headed guy with sparse hair on his face, no beard or facial hair, but like light hair all over his face and head. Yeah. But not, like those people that have that condition. I forgot what it's called. Or off the top of my head.
Alopecia.
Yeah, that covers.
No, not
alopecia means they lose all their hair. But
no.
There's one that's like the opposite of that, where they have hair all over their face.
Yeah, it's like something. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. I don't want to get distracted on that. But this creature was seen running. The first time it was seen in 1971, it was wearing what looked like BDUs, like military pants. Yeah, barefoot with these elongated feet, and it was running on two legs, and it looked like some kind of experiment or something, And it was seen by two GIs that were coming back from leave. And they were going to the base, and they saw it running along in town. I mean, it was close to the town of San Juan. And they reported it to their higher ups. And of course, Manuel's dad was one of the people who fielded the report. The MPs were brought in, and they were like questioning these guys. They were not intoxicated. They took a blood toxicology. They were not drunk. They were not high, and they were told not to talk about it. And for years, Manuel's dad did not. Now he's been out of the military since 2007. So he's now, he's talked about it. He talked about it back in April, late April, early May. Now I remember, Anthony, we were talking about April or May being very busy because Marty had his heart attacks, my business partner. And so we were working all the time. I was having to work all the time and trying to do the show and trying to fend off these crazy people. And so it was a very trying time for me, very taxing. Also, one of the reasons why we haven't been on Spotify is because I've been ill for the last month and a half, still doing one show a week on YouTube, but been battling gout really bad. I mean, it got really bad. And a lot of people say, it comes from a particular strain of the virus that everybody had. I'm not going to get into the name of it or go over it, whatever. But it's connected to that. They call it the long vid, but I don't know. I'd never had it before, and then after I've had it 6 times, and I've had 3 kidney stones. So it's very weird. We've done tests, all kinds of things, trying to figure it out, but it is the most excruciating pain ever. But I digress. That's why you haven't seen us. But so, except for on YouTube. So here we are, and we're talking about this. So his dad said, hey, I'm going to tell you, because he started getting into cryptids and checking out the show. He's a fan of Nick Redfern. Of course, Redfern and Ken Gerhard both doing work on the Chupacabra. He's very fascinated by the reports of the Chupacabra, which I am too. And of course, we did an episode all about it. And the Yunque National Forest is supposedly teeming with these creatures. People see them all the time. But this particular creature that's now being seen in the Yunque National Forest, so I guess it was captured and released there, is supposedly what was told to Manuel's dad, that they were going to capture it and release it into the Yunque National Forest. Why? I just scratching my head going like, now, of course, this is somebody's report, and I'm not saying, I think he's pretty honest. He wasn't, regaling me with wild tales of anything else. He's never seen the Chupacabra by his own admission. He did have a couple of weird things happen. Now, when we have witnesses, we always try to go over what they may have seen themselves.
Like a paranormal history.
Yeah, their paranormal history. He has seen UFOs multiple times over the Yunque National Forest, but that's like, so what? I mean, like, so has thousands of other people, because there probably is a UFO connection there to the Chupacabra. Now, we also know the Chupacabra more than likely, at least this is what my work has told me, crossed into Mexico and the Dominican Republic through the drug trade. And then Mexican narcos took them as pets.
Yeah, we did an episode about that.
Yep, and and we're going to do one too about the cartel too. The cartel are bad dudes, man, and they take Dogman, and they've taken Chupacabra, and they've used them as pets and as guardians, and even used them to throw people, into the boohoo holes to do, damage to them, whatever, tear them apart, whatever, get rid of them. That is the urban legends too. Now, we can't confirm that, I would just say this, they're people I wouldn't want to mess with, let's put it that way. And so they are probably the reason, and my research says they're the reason why they ended up in Mexico. The real Chupacabra, not this dog-like one. That is another weird anomaly here in Texas.
Yeah,
the blue dog.
That blue dog thing, yeah.
We don't know. We've seen it.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. I worked at a site where there was one running around on a job site. And then Ken Gerhard was like, people see him all the time. And I'm just like, okay, Ken, way to go. I thought I'd seen something amazing. But that's not what we're talking about. But this particular creature, now, in 1972, there were 3 sightings of this creature in the spring. And then it jumps to 1974. According to what Manuel was telling me, he's been keeping records of this. In 1975, it was seen 6 different times. But by this point, it didn't have pants. And it looked a little different. It had these really pointy ears, but in some descriptions, it looks more tan-skinned. In other descriptions, it's very pale. Common sense would say that that's probably different. There's different ones.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a population of them. And there was one that was a broad daylight sighting from a couple that it was seen in the Yunque National Forest in 1981 and in 82. There were 3 or 4 different sightings. There were ones that, I say ones because I don't know, I'm speculating, that were seen with black BDUs. And then according to Manuel, there was some that were seen with camouflage BDUs. So are these soldiers? Were these an attempt at the military to create soldiers, super soldiers? I don't know. Now, I know that his brother is a spelunker, and he's been all over the world doing spelunking, and that is actually how I met Manuel. He listens to the show, and of course, he's an avid listener now. But his brother, Matthew, his half-brother, actually is a spelunker. He's spelunked everywhere from like Arizona to Ecuador. Mm-hmm. And he gave us a story of these spiders. You remember the spiders, whatever?
Oh, those crystal spiders?
Mm-hmm. And so he told us, he said, dude, you need to talk to my brother. He's done a lot of work on this man wolf. Now, like I said, it's not, if you're not from Puerto Rico, you're not really hearing about this because the media doesn't. Folks, I'm telling you, this is crazy. It is crazy. It's like a bubble. Like when we talked to the guy from Greece, remember that guy? And he told us a bunch of amazing stuff. And we were like, how can this stuff not be being told? Like people are not knowing this. I got a friend, she was married to a guy from Turkey, and they met at the Orthodox Church. He was actually a Orthodox Christian guy from Istanbul, and they were together for 17 years, and I met him at the gym. You remember we were talking to him at the gym, Anthony?
Yeah.
At Planet Fitness. Don't laugh, folks. I also go to Big Tex where the real people go. All right? So anyways, it was crazy because he was telling us, he's like, dude, there's so much over there, And the Anatolian, and that's what Turkey was called, Anatolia, Asia Minor. He's like, Anatolia has just tons and tons of stories. And he was originally from a small town right outside of Istanbul. And he said that his town was plagued by a vampire. I mean, for years. And then you go and you do this research, like I'm going to be talking about it. I'm going to put it in my book. I made up my mind. It's called The Austrian Vampire, and I'm going to put that one in my book. And then, the Ottomans they were acutely aware when they turned over after the battles were fought, and it was one of the multiple wars they fought with the Habsburgs. In the 1500s, they turned over, what's it called? What is now it was Yugoslavia. Now it's Serbia, Croatia, whatever. They turned that region over to the Habsburgs, the Austro-Hungarians. And of course, the king was like, hey, we need to get to know our subjects. They sent people out to take a census and map and all this stuff. And they were coming into these cities, that were, for lack of a better term, they were being plagued by vampires. And so that one in particular, the Austrian vampire, and what they did about it and how the Austro-Hungarian Empire went about dealing with it, it's very odd, dude. It's very weird. And there were some that were in like Sarajevo. There were some accounts of these vampires or whatever. But then I did some research in Belgrade, Of course, we did the Serbian werewolf. Belgrade. And I got this one from the Polish guy that was telling me about the Polish werewolf, which is another story we're going to do. He was telling me that in Belgrade, there was a rash of killings in 1711 or 1712, something like that. And they were documented. And supposedly this werewolf type creature rampaged through there for 2 years until they shot and killed a man who was in the middle of the mid-transformation, and he was killed with silver. And they shot him with a cannon. Now I said, you stuffed a bunch of silver into a cannon, you shot a guy. I would say he's going to be dead regardless of what he is. I think if you shot me with a cannon, I might be in the middle of being Incredible Hulk. But if silver shot is coming out at me, 100 miles an hour into my chest, I think I'm going to be dead pretty much. From a cannon, you're going to be killed. It's pretty,
wow. His one weakness, bullets.
Not a high survival rate for people getting hit by cannons.
Shrapnel from a cannon. Let's see. So anyway, that's a story that was told to me by this. I don't know. I haven't even looked into the veracity of it. The guy that told me, he was a Polish guy that was giving us the story about the werewolf that plagued his town when he was young. And he was living under the wonderful, magical Soviet Union. But you stop and you look at these stories, and what they have to do with what's going on here is that the point is that we're over here living in this like bubble. I mean, we've talked about this before, folks, on the live stream and on other people's shows about using an alternate web browser, because that may get you information you're not going to get that's not filtered in, and that is the key right there, because there is a lot of stuff out there, man, for Eastern Europe in particular, but even in Western Europe. And then, these stories that you wouldn't normally get out of Australia, New Zealand. I mean, we got one out of Hyderabad, India, just crazy stuff. You're looking at all these weird accounts. You would never know. I mean, like the Azerbaijani story that we got recently, these Turkish stories out of the Levant, Lebanon, Israel. They're not going to show these on the mainstream media. This is not, nobody knows about this stuff, because this is happening. Brazil, Argentina, the one we got from Belize, the bat type creature thing. I don't know if we've told that one yet. These are weird stories, but we're getting them from all over the world. And I think that it also comes in handy to be able to read several languages. Now, folks, in my experience, reading different languages is easier than speaking it. So, the words are a lot easier. You can just kind of read, you get to know what the words are, and you don't have to try to pronounce them. You know what they are. So it's easier to read in like the different languages. You got to realize that France, Spain, England, they all had colonies. So a lot of these places like Morocco, for example, you're going to get things in French, the Ivory Coast, French, Spain, they have, in Portugal, they have all these different places that they colonized, and that's why they speak those languages. So it helps to be able to speak or read those languages, because then you can get a better understanding. But the story of the thing that's walking the forest in the Yunque National Forest in Puerto Rico, according to this guy Manuel, and what his dad told him. His dad, of course, being retired military now, his dad is kind of on the verge of passing away. He has an illness that he's battling, and he's not doing too good. So, I mean, as of April or May, I haven't spoken to him, but briefly back in July to kind of talk about this one. And I said, you know what, I'm going to put this one in a series about Dogman. And then I ended up going, well, let's talk about it in Halloween time. I was really intrigued by the accounts of these people claiming at night to have been attacked by something humanoid, that by the light of the moon, they could kind of see these backward bent legs, but that it had a human-like face. Now, there are also people claiming to have been attacked by a really extremely tall, disfigured man. Now, there again, is that the man-wolf? I mean, or, some of these people may have already heard about it, and then they were predisposed to be like, oh, I got attacked by something, or I heard something. Okay, it was this werewolf type creature, But I'm really intrigued by how the description is pretty spot on, like every time. Like it's like this man-wolf type creature. You're not getting a story of a werewolf. Now, you do have some of those in Puerto Rico, especially in the South, because we looked at the map and we're kind of like, okay, what about this story, this story, this story? You can go on all day. But in particular, like the area around San Juan and going into the Yunque forest, and then, what happened at that installation, like why was it left for dead? According to Nick Redfern, me and him, conversation we had, and Anthony, you might have been privy to this too. But he was talking about the installation having been just left, like defunct. Like they just abandoned it, and now you just have this one little building out there a couple miles up the road, but it's not, there's nothing there. It's just a little building, and people say it's for a weather monitoring or some bullshit. I don't believe that, because you can monitor the weather from anywhere.
Yeah.
You don't need no little outpost.
Weather's in the sky.
Yeah,
it's not going to suddenly go somewhere else.
Let's go and sit right outside the city where you could just, we could tell what it is. Let's put a thermostat outside. I'm joking, folks. It's not that simple. But I don't believe that's what they're doing there. And I do believe the stories, people saying that there's vehicles driving in and then they don't see the vehicle. Well, they're going somewhere, probably going underground. I might sound like a kook or whatever, but the bottom line is this is Paranormal Roundtable, of course, is what we talk about. And in 1983 was one of the last sightings. And then according to Manuel's research, there was not another sighting until 1998 that he could find. And at one point, there were people, every now and then there'd be something in the Puerto Rican news about someone being chased or attacked. But it was always like one or two reports a year. There was never like this flap where, how there's a flap and then there'll be like several sightings and attacks, over the course of like a 5 months, there'll be like 10, 11 people,
Yeah.
It was nothing like that. It was always sporadic, kind of spread out, which I think maybe never let it really gain momentum. And then at one point, there were military people who went into the Yunque National Forest in 1994, and they were armed to the teeth, and they were like a couple of units of soldiers, of Puerto Rican and American soldiers, and there was a lot of gunfire. They had cleared the forest out, told everyone to get out. They found people living in there and were told to leave, and they literally cleared it out. And there were people claiming at that time that the military had gone in and had actually threatened people and had even like beaten people and had done, some pretty heavy-handed things. And then some people claiming that they were shooting. They heard a lot of gunfire. Now, what they were doing, I have no idea. I mean, it could be speculated all day. But we've heard the same thing from what's it called, Yosemite. People claiming that they saw these bear man, and then the military goes in there, or military type people, probably contractors.
Yeah.
And then, because that way, if they get questioned by local, there's no accountability for the government.
Mm-hmm.
So they hire these black shield type people, let's just call it that. And they always have these little weird insignias, pyramids and stuff. So I'm not going to say too much about that, but then next thing you know, there's not a problem. And then the problem comes back, but it looks different. So that's weird. And then the next report was in 1999 of one of these things running down the road. This was a straight up shapeshifter. And it was right outside of the Yunque National Forest to the south. And somebody was driving into the National Forest. And they were going to vacation with their family. And they see this, what looks like a man running alongside the road. And he looks like he's on fire. Like not a fire, but like smoke coming off of his body. And his head was like rolling around back and forth. That's what the report said, according to what I was told. Now, I did talk to another guy named Elias, and that guy had been following the story of the man-wolf for a long time. And the media was very hush-hush about it. Now, I think that the military has a big control there. I do believe that. There's a control apparatus in place. And I thought it was a really cool story, nonetheless, whether it's true or not, or whether it's been, taken and blown out of proportion. I don't know. But consider this. If they want to suppress something, they can. And and Puerto Rico is still an American protectorate. People don't realize that. They are literally, a lot of people say they're the 51st state. And the military has a lot of power there. And so if our military, the military industrial complex, says, hey, shut up, they're probably going to shut up, And so what these people are saying may be true. Now, Elias he was an MP years ago, back in the 80s, absolutely believes that this is something that got out of hand in the first installation that was overrun. According to him, who he claims, now this guy claims that, and his name was Elias Perez. And I don't know if that's a pseudonym or what. I said, is that your real name? He said, just Elias Perez. I said, okay, whatever. He said certain people know him, whatever. And I said, okay. What he told us was that he had gone to that installation. He snuck in, posing as an employer. There were lots and lots and lots of different types of animals there. And on the lower levels, which it went down 7 levels, he said that there were people that were there. Some people had signed up to do this willingly because they were poor and indigent. Some were homeless. There were mental patients that they had released out of these facilities, and still some were military. Now, what he claims was he saw a row of clones going down 2 levels. But he was able to get down to the 3rd level. He couldn't get any further than that. And he posed as a lab tech, and he was there to take samples. And supposedly, and he gave me a long story. I don't have time to do it all here in an hour, but he claimed that he saw a row of clones that were like 13 different beings that were all the same guy. Is it true? I don't know. When I asked Manuel about it, and of course Matt was the first one to tell me, was the guy that had been in the caves. I asked them about this, and he said not only that, but the cave structures that go there. There's one that goes all the way to the ocean. And they were saying, of course, Matt says, I've spelunked those caves. He goes, and I went down so far in one of them that I heard screaming and crying and people weeping and stuff. And he was like, what in the hell? And then at one point he heard gunfire from a long distance away, but the echo could be heard.
Yeah.
Now he's almost like an expert at judging sounds and distances in these caves. I would say almost, I'd say he is. But I wonder, like now there was a story that happened in 1999 when the guy was seen like smoking, whatever. There was another one at the end, like literally at the very end, December 30th, 1999, according to what Matt had told me. He says, Matthew said, you need to look into this story in particular. It's, now Matt's mother is Caucasian, his dad's Caucasian. Manuel's dad is the same dad. They're half brothers, but his mother's Puerto Rican. But they live in the States now in Florida, and they just survived Milton, which is hell. But one of the things he was saying, though, he says, "Look, man," he goes, "if you were to walk across the Yunque Forest," he goes, "from one side to the other, and you just kept walking from day to night, whatever." He's like, "Guarantee you run into a cave." And he goes, "And if you go into one of those caves, you'll never come out. Either you'll get lost and you'll die of hunger, thirst, whatever, or something will take you." And according to him, he said there are these Chupacabra type creatures that are big, like big ones, the size of people, not these little ones that hop around. Those are the ones that were taken from the big ones and made into a small but aggressive type species. And get this we've talked about this reptilian vampire connection on the show, on the live streams, folks. That's on the live. If you go to werewolf, what's it called? Werewolf Confession, and then werewolf confessions and vampire confessions on the live. You need to check those out. One of the things that comes up as a recurring theme of these, like there's this whole vampiric type network. Like, okay, the Chupacabra is a vampiric entity because it drinks the blood of its victims. And there is a type of reptilian, which I believe that's where the Chupacabra, the smaller ones, come from. And you might say, well, how do they genetically do all that? How do you make a dog go from a wolf into a Shih Tzu?
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of selective breeding.
So you create this small but yet aggressive blood-sucking being to see what you can get out of it and how we can use it in war and whatever else. And of course, you're going to find something jacked up. I mean, you're just like, it's going to happen. But I don't know, man. When you stop and you listen to all these different accounts, all these different stories, it makes your head spin. But then it does all connect because we were talking about the vril, right? For example, I believe that was on the live stream too. And we were talking about Rex Rude. Remember him? Very nasty man who I interviewed, which was he was horrible. And a devout disciple of the devil, basically, a vampire who's unrepentant and who was lashing out because he said that I had been interviewing one side of the coin. For those who had repented and changed from being into lycanthropy and vampirism from the cult that they were in, and I call it a cult. But he said, well, those are people who quit, yeah, I'd quit too if that was what was going on.
Yeah.
But this dude was like chastising and then he was condescending, but it made for a good story. So I listened to what he said and then I retold the encounter, putting the disclaimers on there. Who claims he traveled through the underworld through was it the 6 spirals?
Yeah, the 6 spirals. That's what he was looking for.
Yeah, the 6 spirals of the underworld. And he physically made it. And then he said that, of course, he met with this race of reptilians that were vampires that had been infected by the disease of vampirism, is what I call it. He calls it the gift. I call it the disease. And he said that they were at war with the other draconian branch of reptilians, or 3 in particular, what he said. Now, you got to remember, folks, this is all they said this, okay? So just take it with a grain of salt. Yeah. If nothing else, it makes for a good story.
Yeah, because I think he claimed that his objective was to meet those beings for the purpose of making a deal with them.
Mm-hmm. And he also said that one of the things we all agreed on, though, when he told us that that reptilian vampires kind of rule.
Yeah.
Like they're in charge, you know? So anyways, going back to the man-wolf creature, I mean, like that's pretty much it, but this thing was seen multiple times. The last time it was seen in 2004, I believe was the last sighting that Manuel had documented. Elias claimed that they were cloned soldiers and that were used in this operation, and they were pretty much mindless beings that had just been turned into monstrosities and then released into the Yunque forest to attack people and to see how efficient they were. And he claims that there's a network, this is what he said, there's a network of cameras set up, and not just in that national forest, but in the Smoky Mountain National Forest and the Yosemite National Forest, all the national forests around the world. He said that these are havens for these creatures. So I guess, I don't know, what are your thoughts? I want to start with you, Anthony. What do you think?
Well, the fact that these things are being seen outside of these military bases, and Elias saw these examples of human cloning, like, I think that there are populations of human beings that exist only underground or only in these military bases, like human farms. They're farming human beings like cattle so that they have access to humans who have no connection to the outside world, who don't even know what it is that it exists, and their sole purpose is to be experimented upon. I think that's like a big purpose for human cloning, is just to provide test subjects, and that's what these people are saying.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely doesn't surprise me that, you know, he was seen in those military, what is it, the uniform kind of BD?
Yeah, the BDU pants.
Yeah. I mean, because we've, you know, I think it's kind of like a human condition to where if we see there's some way to weaponize something, then we always try to figure out a way to do it. So, like, that doesn't surprise me at all that, you know, they might have experimented on these things that the same way that, you know, we expected them. So, like, it going the opposite totally makes sense as well. Is like, why wouldn't they experiment on us, trying to figure out whatever, the same way that we would experiment on them if we found, you know, 9 foot tall creatures that were just better than us in every way, you know, physically and
physically superior.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like they were mentally.
No.
I don't mean to laugh, but it doesn't sound like they were too, you know, mentally superior.
If you're trying to make a weapon, you don't want it to be mentally superior.
But you're trying to make a soldier orders,
that you can control. Yeah, that's all you need. You don't want them. I think, you know, once you start giving them too much, they're going to realize, like, why would we listen to you? Like, we're
I can eat you. Like, what is it?
Yeah, you know, I tank weapons. You know, you can't really harm me in any way. And now, like, I'm smarter than you. Like, what point do you have besides just being the leash that holds me?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's got to be like a sweet spot of how intelligent they are, so that they're just smart enough to carry out orders, but not smart enough to become self-aware.
I think that's like probably where they're struggling, because it's like, how do you dumb them down without dumbing them down so much that they become animals again? Because you do want some sort of intelligence, because like you said,
but not too much,
but you also don't want too little, because then they just become savage beasts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fine line that I guess they're using human clones to experiment on.
Because they might be trying to find like a more efficient alternative to like MK Ultra style brainwashing, where you can take a human being and make him do whatever you want, but that process is probably really time consuming, and a lot of subjects probably don't survive it. So I mean, an alternative to that would be taking human clones and trying to turn them into some kind of humanoid creature that just carries out specific tasks.
I think it's because, you know, they probably struggle so much because they have like a fundamental misunderstanding of like their intelligence. And so they're probably trying to scale it down or like make it make sense with like human intelligence. But we are prey animals. Like, I mean, not like literally, you know, we dominated the earth, but we are basically prey animals who used our brains to try to figure out.
Compared to like a lot of other animals.
I mean, compared to like most species, I mean, when we look at how like they would develop their tactics or maybe even, you know, defenses or whatever, but we kind of built stuff, and we built stuff to protect ourselves. Whereas like, I mean, I've been touching Banjo here this whole time, and one thing I found is like his skin is so loose, and I can just grab a whole handful of it. And that's not just because like, oh, it's fun to have that. It's because when you're fighting with other dogs or you're, you know, getting attacked by cats and you have that loose skin, their claws and their teeth can't dig in as deep. But like if I just grab my skin a little bit, or even just grab like a claw of something and just rub it against my skin, it'll tear it because my skin is too tight on my skin, or it's too tight.
We're not the design is pretty much like, made to be.
That's how we we're built in a way to where like, oh, we build stuff to protect ourselves. What does a dog man need to build to protect themselves? He doesn't need that type of intelligence. He's a predator. So his mental would be like a predator's. So like, I think that's where like they are misunderstanding it, and they're trying to turn this predator into a subservient creature.
Yeah, and that just doesn't fly. You know, another thing too, like, you know, when they were talking about the cameras being all over the place, you know, and had been there, I didn't say this, but they had been there since the late 70s, early 80s. And I'm like, how would they, and I thought about it, it's like, wait a minute, their technology has been around. Like whatever we're using now, I mean, it's a good rule of thumb. A lot of these guys that have been whistleblowers, you know, they've said like they're 50 years ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, you know, you go back to the 80s, what is that? Like 50 years, you know, I mean, they already had the ability to put cameras up and monitor them via satellites, and you know, they could be watching these creatures. They could have trackers on them, tag them, let them run around and do what they do. But Manuel reached out, you know, like I said, back in April, May, we were communicating. And then I got real busy with work because Marty had the heart attack, and he's doing a lot better now. I keep praying for him, please, Marty Gonzalez. But it's, you know, I wanted to go further down the rabbit hole with this because I've been gone down so many rabbit holes. But this one here was interesting, you know, and you had guys living in Puerto Rico that were researching this. And there were a couple others too that contributed. I'm not even going to mention them. One of them is still working as a contractor who had contributed some information. You know, talking about how they had actually managed to create viable portals that were in these forests that just looked like mirrors that you wouldn't know it. You could walk right into one. And then the cloaking they were talking about, they were telling me that they were using cloaking. So these creatures could be cloaked, and then they were allowing them to attack people. And not just there, but in multiple places around the world, you know? And you're sitting there going like, I mean, every country on this planet has like some sort of state or national park or whatever. And, you know, it's not, I don't believe it's just for vacationing. I think that they're doing something, and they're probably underground. I'm speculating, but there's probably underground bases in these places.
Yeah. Here's an even worse thought, because it's easy to assume like that the military is conducting this research to weaponize these creatures and turn them into something to use against an enemy. But what if they're actually conducting these experiments to find some sort of vulnerability or exploit within the human genome? Because human beings, we have junk DNA from different animals, mm-hmm. and we still don't know why it's there, where it came from, how it got there. So if they're mixing human beings with different animals to create these chimera things, I mean, what if they're trying to tap into that junk DNA and, I don't know, do something, create some sort of bioweapon with it that would affect certain people depending on what kind of DNA, junk DNA they have in them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why they would mix human beings with like wolves and just
and it could have been done way back by the Anunnaki. You know, we've
mm-hmm.
talked about that before. But anyway, folks, that's it. That's, you know, the show. We hope you enjoyed it. Keep an open mind, and if you're going into the national forest, keep your head on a swivel. I'm not saying that these people are telling the absolute truth. I'm telling you they're real people. We interviewed them, but. Do we believe them? I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, somebody tells you that. I mean, I don't think these people have any reason to lie. They're not coming up here trying to be known and showing their ass. They're just telling you, hey, this is what, you know, this is what we think is real. So, with that being said, thank you for tuning into another episode of Paranormal Roundtable. Don't forget, join the Patreon. It's a good way to support the show. Go check out the PRT store, buy a shirt or a hoodie. That's another good way to support the show. Or you can donate directly to the PayPal. Anything helps. Helps keeps us going. Helps keep us going. That sounds I hate when I mispronounce things. Helps keep us going. That's what we do. So thank you for tuning in, folks, and good night.